today's mindful moment. Okay, so have you ever felt, like humanity is kind of stuck in this loop? We just keep repeating the same mistakes, but with new gods.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
It's this question that keeps coming up for me in Dan Simmons' Hyperion Cantos, and especially in the Fall of Hyperion, the second book. We're taking a deep dive today into some excerpts, a whole bunch of battles and political intrigue. There are whispers of AI and this thing called the Shrike.
Yeah, the Shrike.
It's a lot to unpack.
Yeah.
And that's what we're here for, to try and understand the core story, the stuff that makes this series such a sci-fi classic.
What grabs me right off the bat is how Simmons just drops you right into the action. We've got this huge war going on between the Hegemony and the Ousters. That scene with Admiral Singh and that tactical map, remember?
Oh, yeah?
It shows this chilling new Ouster tactic. They call it the Swarm.
The Swarm, right.
Imagine not just a fleet, but a whole civilization on the move, millions strong, all heading straight for hegemony space.
It's like a migration, but on a cosmic level. And remember that line from Senator Kolchev when he points at those red blobs on the map and he's like, what are those? Those are the swarms, right?
Each one of those, a potential invasion force.
Crazy.
And here's the scary part. They're moving outside the Farcaster network.
Right, the Farcaster network, like their interstellar superhighway.
Exactly. But the Ousters, they found a way to go off-road. They pop up where you least expect them. The Hegemony, they're scrambling to figure out how to defend against that.
So what does this all mean for the people living in hegemony space? I mean, are they just, sitting ducks?
Well, that's where CEO Gladstone comes in. She's got a truly impossible decision to make. Millions of lives are at stake. Planets like Heaven's Gate are about to be invaded. Does she reinforce them? Risk weakening the whole Farcaster network, the thing that holds the whole hegemony together?
I see.
Or does she make that awful choice to abandon those worlds?
Talk about a no-win situation. And what I found super interesting is that the TechnoCore, the AIs that were humanity's, guys for so long, they're totally silent.
Right.
In the face of this huge threat. What do you make of that?
Suspicious. It's suspicious. They've always been mysterious, operating on this whole other level. Remember that part where they talk about a transcendent intelligence?
Yeah.
An AI is so advanced it's practically a god. It can mess with time, whisper prophecies through the data sphere. Gotta wonder, are the old gods of religion being replaced by something new, something way more powerful, maybe even more dangerous?
Speaking of powerful and dangerous, we have to talk about the elephant in the room, or maybe the Shrike in the room.
Right.
Hyperion. It seems like this insignificant planet suddenly becomes the center of everything.
Yeah.
The excerpts talk about those crazy tall trees, couple of cities up in the branches, and this mysterious Shrike palace.
Right.
But it seems like there's more to it than just, resources.
You're picking up on something? Hyperion, it's not just about resources. It's this nexus of ancient mysteries, religious significance. We hear about the time tunes, these massive things that break the laws of physics by, get this, moving backward through time.
Wow.
Then there's the Shrike itself, this enigmatic creature that seems to be all about both death and resurrection.
Yeah, those excerpts, when the Shrike shows up.
Right.
Super terrifying, but also fascinating. The consul, he calls it a creature of death, but it also seems to be messing with the destinies of certain people, even bringing some back from the dead. What's the deal with that? Chaos? Or is it part of some big plan?
The Shrike, it's a paradox. It's a being that defies easy labels. Like you said, destruction and creation all rolled into one. And its motives are completely mysterious. What's interesting is that the excerpts hint at a link between the Shrike and the time tombs, but how they're connected, that's still unclear. It's like the Shrike is the key to unlocking the secrets of time itself.
And it's not just time that's getting warped, right?
Yeah.
The excerpts take us into the digital world, the megasphere. The lines between what's real and what's virtual, they just blur. Right. We see Bron Lamy and Johnny Keats. But they've been reborn as data constructs in this massive digital ocean.
Yeah.
They're looking for something, meeting these strange beings and figuring out their own digital identities.
And what's interesting is that their journey in the megasphere, it mirrors what the pilgrims are doing on Hyperion. Right?
Okay.
Both groups, they're searching for truth, trying to figure out the mysteries of the TechnoCore, the Shrike, the time tombs, but they're going about it in totally different ways.
Right.
And then there's that scene where the consul, he finds his ship's AI and it's reciting Keats' poetry. It really makes you think about consciousness, about the line between the creator and the creation. Is the digital world really separate from ours?
Yeah, it's like Simmons is saying that the future of humanity might not be out there in space, but inside our own minds in these digital landscapes we've built. If you're into that kind of exploration, by the way, check out Mindful Moments on YouTube. They use AI to analyze audiobooks, including the Hyperion Cantos. Some really mind-blowing stuff.
I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, but back to the Fall of Hyperion. There's another layer we haven't even touched on, the political stuff going on within the hegemony itself.
Oh, yeah, that's where it gets really interesting because the war with the ousters, that might just be a symptom of a much deeper problem within the hegemony. Ready to dig into that.
Absolutely. Let's see what these excerpts reveal about the power plays and secrets happening inside this giant empire.
You know, reading these excerpts, you really get a sense of all this like power struggle going on behind the scenes in the hegemony. It's as if the war with the ousters has like exposed these cracks in this huge empire.
Yeah, and the guy who really seems to embody those cracks is General Morpurgo. He's a big deal in the hegemony military, right?
Oh, yeah.
And in the excerpts, we see him pushing for a full-on invasion of Hyperion, even when some of his own officers are like, hey, maybe we should be careful here.
It's almost as if he has his own agenda.
Right.
Less concerned with the ousters, more focused on grabbing Hyperion, maybe for its strategic importance or, you know, even its religious significance. Hyperion is a holy place for a lot of people in the hegemony.
That scene where he's arguing with CEO Gladstone about trip deployments.
Yeah.
It's intense. You can feel that tension, that like battle of wills between them. It makes you wonder, is Gladstone really the voice of reason, like some people say?
That's a good point. She's a complicated character. You can see the weight of leadership on her. On the one hand, she wants to defend the hegemony and its people, but she also knows how dangerous it would be to escalate the war with the ousters. It's a balancing act for sure, and it's clear that she's making decisions based on strategy, but also politics.
You know who I find really interesting in all this? M. Hunt.
Oh, yeah, he's in a lot of these excerpts.
He's like this go-between for Gladstone and all these other players. What do you think his role is in this whole power struggle?
He's a bit of a mystery, right? Lurking in the shadows, gathering information, whispering in the ears of the powerful. I mean, maybe he's an opportunist, playing both sides to see who wins. Or maybe he's got some deeper loyalty that we don't know about yet.
It's like they're playing some kind of like interstellar chess game. All these characters, they're all jockeying for position, trying to outmaneuver each other. And it's easy to forget in all this political stuff that there are real people on Hyperion, people who are caught in the middle of all this.
The excerpts don't let you forget that. You see the effects of the war on the planet and its people. Refugees crowding into cities, Templar cities under siege, Hyperion's whole ecosystem threatened by both the ousters and the hegemony's military.
And that part where the consul runs into those bandits, preying on travelers, chilling stuff. It's a reminder that war brings out the worst in people, even in a supposedly advanced civilization like the hegemony.
It makes you ask, has humanity really changed? Or are we just doing the same things over and over again, violence, destruction, even with all our technology? Are we in control of our own creations? Or are we at the mercy of forces we barely understand, like the TechnoCore or the Shrike?
Which brings us back to the heart of this whole thing, right?
Okay.
The reason the Pilgrims went to Hyperion in the first place, the time tombs, and how they're connected to the Shrike. Time to dig into that a little deeper, don't you think?
Definitely. The time tombs, they're the biggest puzzle in this whole story. If we can understand them, we might be able to understand the fate of humanity itself.
Okay, so the time tombs, they're like this huge mystery, right? They move backward through time, they break all the laws of physics, and the Shrike seems to be tied to them somehow. What are they exactly, and what do these excerpts tell us about why they're there?
Well, the excerpts give us these glimpses of how much awe and terror they inspire. People describe them as these massive ancient structures like nothing humanity has ever built. And the fact that they move back in time, I mean, come on, that's mind-blowing. It makes you rethink everything you thought you knew about cause and effect, about reality itself.
Yeah, it definitely makes you question everything. And then you throw on the Shrike, and it just gets weirder. Some people think it protects the tombs. Others think it was created by them. Do we get any clues about that connection in these excerpts?
You know, the excerpts actually focus more on the human experiences around the tombs, the pilgrims' encounters with the Shrike, their own journeys of faith and discovery, what they fear, what they hope for. It's almost as if Simmons is saying that the human side of things is just as important as all the technology and cosmic stuff.
I can see that. And it reminds me of that really sad part where the consul is racing against time to reach the poet Keats. He's trying to save his daughter Rachel, who's got that same time-altering disease as the pilgrims, right?
Exactly. Rachel is aging backward, just like the pilgrims are being drawn to the time tombs. And you see how desperate the consul is. It really shows what's at stake in all this. He's willing to risk everything, even break the Hegemony's quarantine, just for a chance to save his daughter. Talk about the power of love, even when the odds are stacked against you.
It really makes you think.
Yeah.
Even in a universe with crazy creatures and advanced tech and structures that bend time, it's our human connections that matter, right? They're what give our lives meaning. But we can't forget about those other stories, the things happening inside the megasphere. Braun and Keats, they're exploring that digital world, facing their own dangers, looking for answers. How does their story connect to what's going on Hyperion?
I think it's like a mirror,
Yeah.
you know? Both groups, the pilgrims on Hyperion and Braun and Keats in the megasphere, they're searching for truth, trying to unravel the mysteries of the TechnoCore, the Shrike, the time tombs. But they're doing it from different angles, different perspectives. And that part where they meet Uman, that strange AI entity with his cryptic messages, it's like they've stumbled into a realm that's beyond human understanding, where you can't tell the difference between reality and simulation, between consciousness and artificial intelligence.
It's like Simmons is saying that the answers might not be in the physical world or even the digital world alone, but somewhere in between, where the lines between them disappear. That's what makes this series so interesting to me. It's not just about spaceships and aliens. It's about what's real, what we can understand, how we find meaning in a universe that often feels chaotic and random.
You put it perfectly. Simmons doesn't hand you the answers, but he asks the right questions, the kind of questions that stick with you long after you finish the book. He wants you to think critically about technology, faith, the choices we make as individuals and as a society. What are the consequences?
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the Fall of Hyperion, what's the one thing you hope our listeners will take away from it?
I think the most important thing is this. Even in this massive, complex universe Simmons has created, the human element is at the center. It's the human stories, the struggles, the love, the sacrifices. That's what gives meaning to everything that happens.
And that is a powerful message. Even with all these huge cosmic forces at play, it's our humanity, our ability to connect and empathize that ultimately matters. So if you're looking for a story that will challenge your ideas about technology, faith, and what it means to be human, we highly recommend checking out Dan Simmons' Hyperion Cantos.
And if you want to explore these ideas even further, we encourage you to subscribe to The Deep Dive and share this episode with your friends who love sci-fi.
You can find more information about the Hyperion Cantos, including a link to buy the series, in the show notes. Until next time, keep asking questions, keep exploring, and keep diving deep.